You could argue that the first paragraph of Dream of the Red Chamber is the most important paragraph of the entire book. It not only sets the tone for the whole story, but it also gives hints as to how the story should be interpreted. In a manner of thinking, you can consider it to be the perfect introduction. It's also routinely mistranslated. In fact, both of the most popular English translations of Dream of the Red Chamber barely touch it. David Hock's The Story of the Stone is the best-known translation of Hong Lo Meng, or Dream of the Red Chamber, in English. Actually, the Hock's translation is so well regarded in the literary community that most foreign translations of Dream of the Red Chamber are not translations of the Chinese, but translations of Hock's English version. I'm dead serious. However, Hock's completely omits the first paragraph and starts with what is traditionally thought to be the second paragraph. Now, I should be fair to Hock's. He does include a somewhat incomplete translation halfway through his introduction, but again, it's not complete. This is ironic when he prides himself on translating everything at the end of his introduction. Okay, it's not that I have like a bone to pick with David Hock's. I'm just upset, that's all. I mean, how can you translate a book if you don't, translate the book? Well, the less famous A Dream of Red Mansions translation by Gladys Yang and her husband Liang Xianyi does contain the first paragraph of the novel. However, the Yangs left off a few sentences here and there, something that they did over and over again throughout their translation of the whole book. Now, the mistranslation and the undertranslation really is a huge problem. We are not going to understand how to actually read Dream of the Red Chamber unless we know, how it begins, so let's get into it. First comes the names that are intended to be deliberate puns. Now, you can figure this out even if you don't speak Chinese, but you're going to have to bear with me for a minute. The thing that you need to realize is that a single sound in Chinese can have dozens or hundreds of different characters and an almost unlimited number of meanings. The author of Dream of the Red Chamber, Cao Shuiqin, knew this and took full advantage of it. He turned the names of his characters into codes, sort of like little riddles for his readers to work through. The first one of these riddles comes up right away. That's this name, Zhen Shirin. So, Zhen Shirin is the protagonist of the first chapter, that is. He's a false main character, and I know that sounds crazy, but that's just how the book was written. The name Zhen Shirin is a homophone with the name Zhen Shirin Xu, which appears in the same sentence. It might be easier for me to just translate this for you. So it says, the author says that after having had kind of a dreamlike experience, he decided to hide the truth, relying instead on spiritual communication to write this book, The Story of the Stone. This is why he used names such as Zhen Shirin. That phrase, Zhen Shirin Qu, means to hide the truth, which is the secret meaning of Zhen Shirin's name. And there's another interesting thing here. The surname Zhen is a homophone with the word Zhen, which means truth. Well, that's going to make a little bit more sense once we look into the second of these riddle names. This one is for the character Jia Yucun, who is also another false protagonist. Jia Yucun comes up near the end of this first paragraph and is a homophone with the phrase Jia Yucun Yan, which means false words in country language. Again, it's probably easier just to translate the sentence. Sure, I may be uneducated and poor at writing, but why can't I use ordinary language to explain things? Such language would illuminate the stories of those girls, dispel moments of boredom, and might even help others like me to wake up. Isn't that appropriate? This is why I use names such as Jia Yucun. In other words, Jia Yucun means false words in country language, which I've translated here as ordinary words. And the next interesting thing is that the surname Jia is a homophone with the word Jia, which means falsehood. So you've got the truth on one hand and you've got falsehood on the other. And this actually helps open up a window into the philosophic nature of the novel. Truth and fiction, truth and lies, so on and so forth. This literally comes out in every chapter. Now, I'm not the only scholar who's ever seen this. The late and great Professor Anthony Yu wrote an entire book on Dream of the Red Chamber in which he talks a lot about what he calls the Zhen-Jia dichotomy. Now that's a pretty fancy way of talking about the constant references in the book to truth and fiction. Now, the author, Cao Shuiqin, doesn't tell us precisely what is and what is not real. In other words, what is true, what is fiction. And that's really the joy of this novel. It's up for me and up to you and up to every reader to decide for him or herself what is and what is not real. And for some people, that means going as far as to research into Cao Shuiqing's personal life to see if they can find any parallels between things he experienced and the events of the book. It's kind of wild when you think about it. But the truth is that you and I don't really need to worry about that. All you have to do is keep in mind that the names of characters in this book tend to have hidden meanings. And of course, a good translation will tell you that. Okay, here's a little preview for a couple chapters later on in the book where we'll see just how deep this stuff goes. There are 4 girls in the Jia family, which, by the way, Jia Yucun probably is not legitimately a part of. These girls are named Jia Yuanchun, Jia Yingchun, Jia Tanchun, and Jia Xichun. Put their 4 given names together and you get these 4 characters, Yuan, Ying, Tan, and Xi. These 4 characters are a pun. They stand for this phrase, Yuan Ying Tan Xi, which means one should sigh from the beginning. But the question here, of course, is what is it that we're sighing at? Are we sighing at their fate? But are they really fated to wind up the way that they eventually wind up, or is something else to blame? Well, the fun part is that Cao Shuiqing never really answers this question. It's up to us. This is where the debate comes in. And that leads me directly to the second point brought up in the first chapter, which is just how subversive the book really is. This is absolutely clear in this first paragraph. I believe that this must have actually been shocking to the literary audience in China when it was first released. Cao Shuiqing writes, "Seeing that I've accomplished nothing in the midst of the hustle and bustle of this world, I started to think about the women I used to know. When I really think about it, I realize that their actions and insights far surpassed my own. Though I am a grown man with a mustache and a beard, I am truly no match for their skirts and hairpins." Well, as you probably know, and if you don't, now it's time to learn about this, 18th century China was an extremely patriarchal or male-dominated society. Most women were reduced to being slaves in their own home. They hobbled around on artificially small and bound feet and were unable to fend for themselves. I mean, they couldn't walk very far if they had to. And here you have a great literary master saying that he is no match for the words and deeds of these women. The truth is that the entire book is filled with this kind of subversive phrasing. It's a masterful criticism of the male-dominated society of Cao Shuiqing's day. Now, sometimes the criticism is easy to see. More frequently, though, it's hidden, and you have to start asking yourself why characters do and say certain things in order to see the subversiveness. Cao Shuiqing also strongly criticizes the religion of his day, which is something that even the best English translators seem to overlook. So keep this in mind, this book is not some nice story about a bunch of pretty girls in wonderful imperial China. It's not. This is a book that's about death, this book is about sorrow, and this book is about the helpless struggling against a system that was designed to oppress and to strangle. And as you can guess, that message is just as important today in modern society, regardless of the country you're in, as it was back then. And that brings me to the third point. Cao Shuiqing tells his readers exactly what his main point is at the end of this paragraph. Here he says, "In the same vein, I often use words like dream and illusion in this book. These words reflect the book's main theme and serve as a reminder or as a warning to my readers." This part is so frequently overlooked by Western scholars that, it's not even funny. Neither David Hawkes nor the Youngs even bothered trying to translate this sentence, and it makes me mad. These 2 Chinese characters, Meng, which means dream, and Huan, which means illusion, come up over and over again in this book. So what are we supposed to think of this? Are we supposed to think that life itself is a dream? Is this supposed to tell us that the story is just fiction? Is this a pro-religious argument intended to bring us closer to Buddhism or Taoism? Or is this yet another example of this book subverting society? Well, all of that is up for us as readers to decide. Now, I can't give you all the answers, but I can certainly help translate the book for you and point you into the right direction. So stick around here and learn some more. And while you're at it, go check out redchamber.blog. Look at my translation there. Drop me a note while you're there and let me know what you think.